talk about communities, right, you really kind of ask your questions. We look at, how do you connect customers, employees, and partners, right? So from a customer perspective, how do you get, more leads and execution into your agents? How do you, have that self-service for your customers so they can come to, a site, collaborate with both your product management, with your sales, with your, other customers? How do they collaborate in a way that they can communicate to each other and leverage their experiences and also share their brand loyalty and their brand advertisement? We all know that social, the benefit of that is really how do you bridge that out and get that brand loyalty, out to others? And they can share their experiences, or they can share some of the challenges they might be having with a current product that so your R&D can see that, make improvements as they grow and as these different aspects evolve. When we talk about connecting employees, again, it's an age-old problem. How do you connect the business processes in your organization with a collaborative tool and a collaborative solution that's really at the foundation of your application platform? So it's in everything you do. So you're able to get to workflow and get to your object, get to processes, get to business applications in one space. And then again, connecting with your partners, how do you leverage your channels? How do you bridge that sales process and that lead generation and break down the walls that exist between your partners and you? And that's really why we came up with communities. As communities evolves, it's really an evolution of what Salesforce has been doing with our portals and with Chatter and bringing that whole paradigm together into one space. Because a disconnected organization is struggling. And what communities is really, it's the next evolution of Salesforce's products. So as we start looking at, prior to this, for those of you who own portal products, we had things like site.com and answers and knowledge. All this is encapsulated in one bundle on a platform, single platform. We'll talk about that. Because if you look at this is really a foundation for your application. This is a platform as a service with social and collaboration built into the DNA of it. So every application you integrate with, every application you build into your community, everything that you use across your organization has that core component that you're seeing here built right into it, so you can interact with your partners, your communities, and also your customers and employees.
That communities are not necessarily new, although it's a new product from Salesforce. The idea of engagement on the Salesforce platform has been around a long time. So for us, we really think of relationship management and CRM at the core, really putting the person, the customer at the core. And we really see branded apps, sites, and communities as a layer that is on top of that core. And so many of you have sites today or portals today that you're engaging with your customers or your partners. Communities is really, as Paul's talked about, sort of that next evolution. But we also see it connected to marketing automation aspects, and we see it connected to social campaign management. And FICO is another example of someone who built a community on the Salesforce platform several years ago, and they actually are integrating a number of different cloud-based systems, and they allow prospects to come into their community and get access to white papers and so on. And they can actually, someone can do a trial download, and they're using marketing automation in their community to track all of the papers that this person has read, as well as the trial downloads. And it kicks off a workflow to the sales side of the business, and they can actually call you back in 7 days and talk about how's your trial download going and so on. But they also have all their customers participating in this. So a lot of what Salesforce does is combine prospects and customers and have that open dialogue, and they're facilitating that with their community. The better question is why communities, and I think we hit on this a lot, but it's this idea of the next generation portal combining Force.com, Site.com branding, and Chatter collaboration. But it's also really the Salesforce platform with collaboration at its core. When we think about communities, some of the other things you need to think about when you launch a community, and some of you have seen this internally with Chatter, and it's just as true externally, is there's an initial spike of interest. Oh, that's interesting, everybody logs in a couple of times, but it settles into a sort of a steady state. And you really have to think about what's your strategy for either steady growth or a disruptive shift, or else you're going to experience a slow death. And then at a high level, as you think about keys to success with things like communities and really collaboration with customers, it's what is your brand promise? How are you authentic? It can't just be a one-way marketing conversation. You have to identify your audiences. You really have to think about how you attract and engage users to your community. One key thing is often access to subject matter experts. And this goes along with sort of the transparency idea of how much information can I really expose. You can have public or private community.
Hey, what is this thing, marketing automation? Let's just have a very basic definition. Marketing automation is a software category that helps companies to streamline and automate common marketing tasks, with the goal of some cases of being more operationally efficient, but more importantly, to actually help you grow revenue faster, i.e. be a better customer company. So what are some of the capabilities that are common in marketing automation? Well, there's a bunch. I'm going to go through them very quickly just to kind of lay the groundwork for this discussion. First and foremost, marketing automation is an email system. If you use marketing automation, you will typically replace an email service provider that you might have because you can send batch emails with marketing automation, but you can also do so much more. So there's sort of this graduation off of an ESP as you move into marketing automation. One of the other things that you can do is build landing pages and forms, right? Email clicks go somewhere, right? And they typically, a marketer, when they have the ability to build a new landing page or a registration page as easily as they build a PowerPoint slide, that really increases their agility and flexibility. Marketing automation has behavior tracking. So typically, all the technologies out there, you'll put a couple lines of JavaScript on the website that'll cookie people, and then that cookie will allow you to sort of see what they do, what web pages they visit, what links they click on, what keywords they use when they're navigating to the site, and so on. And that behavior tracking ends up being, part of then probably the most important thing that marketing automation delivers, which is this rich marketing database of record. So it's going to integrate with Salesforce or your other CRM system, so it will know all your leads and your contacts and your accounts and your opportunities and any custom objects, because all that information stays in sync. But marketing automation will also then add this rich behavioral history of everything that person has done, on the web and over email, over social, as well as the history of all the marketing interactions with this person. So every campaign they've been sent and what's their status in the campaign, and so on. And you have that rich marketing database as the marketer's system of record, which is important for targeting and for analytics. Conversations, not campaigns. I love this image. How many people here have ever used the word email blast? Right, almost all the hands are up. If I asked it in Europe, you'd use the word e-shot. Right? Sometimes at Marketo, our marketers are even guilty of saying, I'm going to hit the database. Right? All these words, right, have just the word blast, it's an explosion, right? It's shoving a whole bunch of force at something in a very unrelevant way, or a shotgun blast, right? It hurts, and it's not targeted. I think put simply, nobody wants to be blasted. Relevance is also important because it doesn't matter if you're having a nice multi-step conversation if you're not saying something that's interesting, right? People today are overwhelmed with the amount of marketing messages hitting them. According to the source, Adbusters, the average consumer sees 2,904 marketing messages a day. Right? They only actually pay attention to a little over 50 of them, and they're only going to actually remember 4 of them, right, of all the marketing messages that we get hit with in each and every day. It's kind of like, I like to think of it as like a sponge, right, in water. There's all these marketing messages in the water, right? They're only going to remember 4, right? So how do we make sure that our message is one of the 4 that they're actually going to pay attention to, right? Because these little sponges only hold so much. I think the key is to be relevant. Right? If we're not relevant with our customers and our communications, they're going to opt out. Or more likely, they're going to emotionally opt out. Right? They're just going to stop paying attention. Right? And so relevance, I think, is the single most important thing we need to aspire to as marketers in order to break through the noise that's happening with our consumers today.
The one area that I really feel is a gap that I don't see a lot of people really talking about or reading about as I read through the things we see in the media is really how to successfully leverage it and how to take the insights that you can get from big data and really how to make it actionable in a way that's going to add value and help you track to business objectives. There's a lot of talk about it, but there's really not a lot of here's how to do it. So we're going to focus a little bit there today as well. and show you some practical examples. And hopefully when you walk out of here today, we'll give you kind of 3 key takeaways that we want you to have, how you can take some things from big data and take it to your company. It's more the organizational side of it. So from a big data perspective, instead of just firing up a tool or firing up technology and trying to figure out what to do with what's coming out of it, the proverbial fire hose, we'll talk about really what you need to know to have success in terms of you need to have a plan. You need to understand what you want to learn from it and tie that to your objectives. We'll talk a little bit about how to get insights from it, which is technology related, but also human related. And then we'll really talk about what, from a leadership perspective, do you need to have in place to understand how to leverage those things.
Well, when I talk to my customers and my clients, they say, I don't know what to do with this. So, I don't know what to do with all these tweets. I don't know what to do with this Facebook comment. I know I need to be out there listening, but once I get that, I have no idea, because really, it's massive data that I don't know what to do with, but I know I have to have it. And that's really what we want to talk about, is how do you take some of that, as he said, the insights and the 3 V's, but how do you take that from a social perspective and really have it do something for you?
The time that I talk about this slide, in 1 minute, and it'll probably take me longer than 1 minute, but in 1 minute, there's going to be 100,000 tweets sent in the next minute. There's going to be over almost 685,000 users are going to share content in Facebook in the next minute. There's going to be 3,600 photos shared on Instagram, almost 28,000 new blog posts in Tumblr. They already happened in the last 60 seconds.
I think it's really interesting when you start looking at this and you start thinking about that velocity, is that people aren't just having conversations of, my dog needs to, go get food or things like that. We're having conversations around brands. And if you think that your brand, that you own the voice of your brand anymore, look at just these statistics. The customer, the consumer owns your brand. So, for example, I came here from Chicago, had a great stay at a Homewood Suites. What's the first thing I did? I tweeted about it, right? What's the first thing I did when I got here? I checked in on Foursquare. I flew American Airlines. I tweeted about that. So if you think that I'm tweeting just to tell my friends, like, I had a great dinner last night, I'm talking about the customer. I am the customer talking about the brand. I am your voice. And you need to arm me to make sure that I'm speaking on your behalf.
For B2B brands, we don't see a lot of discussion about the brand typically. But what we see discussion is about a product category or about the industry. And that, or if you're B2B to C, look for the conversations about the customer of your customer. Those are all things that have a tremendous amount of value that you can drive, that you can understand more about the conversations taking place and leverage them for marketing, sales, and a lot of different topics as you understand social big data.
Optimization. What's your drink of choice, right? Are you guys at your organizations, are you taking the fire hose and trying to suck it down, or are you drinking from the water fountain? And what I've heard everybody say here, what I've heard the folks say in the keynote is iterative, agile, small bites, prioritize, lots of the same words for the same thing. And just an aside, Salesforce.com is one of the best platforms, and if you're a user of Salesforce, you know this, one of the best platforms for pilots, proof of concepts, get something up and running quickly in hours or days, not weeks or months. I mean, it's one of the best platforms for that. But thinking about all the things you've heard about today, this is kind of how we organize it all, from relationship management up through branded app sites and communities and engaging your customers, marketing automation, which was an earlier session that some of you might have been in, and then social campaign management and that listening with Radian6 and Buddy Media and engaging your customers. It's a lot, right? Fire hose. How the hell do you take all the stuff you heard today, all this stuff that's on the platform, stuff that Patty said where challenge Salesforce and they'll say, yeah, it can do that. How do you take all that? That's 150% of what you need. How do you take that and boil it down to the really important stuff that the folks even in the keynote mentioned, right? They said, make sure it maps to your business objectives. Because if it doesn't, it's the wrong thing to focus on. And it's a process similar to what this group has used, similar to the same words that we've all heard today. We've got a process that helps us do that and take everything down that you're looking at taking on or want to take on and figuring out the highest priority stuff that you should focus on. And it looks something like this. First, really 4 points. First, make sure you've got objectives. And it sounds silly to say, but you'd be amazed at the organizations we work with that you're like, well, what are your objectives for the year? I don't know. What are your objectives for the quarter? Increase sales? They don't know. It's crazy. Make sure you got those things defined, because if you don't, you're just running off somewhere. Somebody said take a trip, and you said where? They said, I don't know, anywhere. Make sure you got those objectives defined. Once you define those objectives, you've got this big set of features that you want to take on. And in this example, it's the blue and the yellow. Make sure you map those objectives back to your, make sure you map your features back to your objectives. Because if you don't, how do you know it's the right thing to focus on? And if it doesn't map to your objective, you should probably question if it's the right thing to do. Once you do that, simplify it, because it's probably too complex. Take that feature and break it down and make it something simple that you can release quickly and get feedback on and check. Maybe it's not the right thing to do. Once you do that, also prioritize. Where's the low-hanging fruit? Where are the features I'm going to get my most value? Where are the features that I've got to solve a major problem? Through that process, as you're developing, get user feedback. Not at the end, but in the middle of it. Get user feedback and just kind of check in. Turn your screen. Is this the right thing? Yeah, that's right. Cool. Keep moving. Make sure you continually release and evolve. I mean, this sounds similar to Salesforce, right? Major releases a year, small incremental releases throughout the year. Evolve your product. Launching pilots, launching betas. Check first. There's a reason Salesforce does that. It's because they're not saying we know exactly what you need. They're saying we think this is something you're going to use, and get feedback and evolve it. This is the same process they use. Launch it, get feedback, put that feedback into your feature backlog where you have all your features, the things you want to do, prioritize, and keep moving. It's really hard to take that big feature set that you guys have on your shoulders or are looking at or want to do and trying to figure out where you focus. And that's the fire hose. And the whole point is to be able to find the right filter and apply that filter so that you're not drinking from the fire hose, you're drinking from a drinking fountain. And that's the process we use. That's the process you've heard about today.